miserable.
He's so fucking funny.
Dude is weird. He wanted to be a movie star. A relatable premise. What a premise where you like, how do you get anything out of this? And was murdering. Just murdering. I can't remember what he said, but I was crying laughing. We were crying laughing. It was so funny. And there were so many punchlines in there. It was so, his sense of irony, his sarcasm, the way he would hit the punchlines, the writing. It's like all day he prepared for these sets, and then he would just go into a darkness and just get ready to do it again.
That's brutal.
Horrible. I knew his girlfriend. His girlfriend was a comic too. One of his girlfriends at the time. I don't think she was the girl that was his girlfriend at the time that he killed himself. But she was a comic at the store, and she would just tell me, it's just like, the guy's so brilliant, but he's like so eaten up.
Yeah, some people can't find balance.
Oh, it sucks, man. When they're that good, you just like want to hug them. Just like, come on, man. Keep it together.
Just want to go. Just enjoy the rest of it.
I've told this story before, so I apologize to anybody that's heard it. But he went to the East Side Comedy Club in Huntington, that wasn't Huntington Beach. It was on Long Island. East Huntington? I forget where it was. But East Side Comedy Club is a great comedy club on Long Island. And I went there on a Sunday, and I talked to the guy that was the MC all weekend, and he was depressed. And I said, why are you depressed? He goes, Richard Jeni did a different hour every show. He did 4 different hours and killed. He goes, I'm up there. He goes, I have 20 minutes that I'm opening with, and I can barely get through them. They suck. And then I'm bringing on this genius who does a different hour every fucking show. And he goes, it makes me want to quit comedy. Because I never heard from him. I really think that might have done him in. Like, I think he was around for like a year or two after that, but I think that was it.
That is tough to watch, though. When you're working with a master, you're not even close to it yet.
It's like those dudes who fought Mike Tyson in the early days. Like, you never saw them again.
Yeah. I've been late for a show twice in my life, and both times it was from watching Mike Tyson's greatest hits.
Oh, wow. They will drive you crazy. There was a time, like, in, like, 1986 to, like, whatever it was when he lost to Buster Douglas. There's never been a heavyweight like him. I think he's the greatest of all time. I think he was the greatest of all time for a short period of time, but I think you have to look at a fighter in particular. They can't keep it up forever.
He's going to put new cement down.
They only have a few years in this, like, high revolution, high red line prime. And that's what I try to judge them on. There's ways people judge fighters on longevity. Maybe like Sugar Ray Robinson or the best example of all time is Bernard Hopkins. Bernard Hopkins was a world champion when he was 49 years old. Crazy.
That's my age.
Crazy. And fucking up guys that were 20 years younger than him with ease. You know?
That's wild.
I mean, he was a master. Just a masterful boxer who had incredible discipline and never lost focus and never got out of shape and never ate bad food, never ate processed anything. He always ate, like, clean, organic food, drank water, no booze, fuck you. You know, up in the morning, always running, always calisthenics, always was shredded, never gained weight in between fights. Even today. I had him on the podcast today, like a couple months ago. How many months ago? 6 months ago? Maybe a little longer. Something like that. Even now. Guy's like in his 50s, fucking shredded.
I don't have
ready to go. You don't have to.
Yeah,
you're a comedian.
Just like, I need the processed food sometimes.
Sometimes you need a little comfort, you know?
What do you think it was about Tyson? Do you think it was his... I always equated it to his legs and his coil.
There was a lot of factors. First of all, there was his upbringing, right? So he had a horrible upbringing.
Okay.
Just crime and violence in the worst neighborhood in Brooklyn. He lived in Bed-Stuy, right? So Brownsville, I think, originally, in Bed-Stuy. Terrible neighborhoods. Real bad. You know, a lot of crime, a lot of violence. And then at 13 years of age, he gets adopted by this guy, Cus D'Amato, who's one of the greatest boxing minds of all time. And he's also a hypnotist. So from age 13 on, he's hypnotizing Mike and telling Mike he's the greatest of all time. He's the greatest of all time. He's going to be the greatest heavyweight the world has ever seen. And then on top of it, you have crazy genetics. Mike, I had Teddy Atlason. He told me that when Mike was 13, he was knocking out a grown man. And they wouldn't believe he was 13. He'd bring him to boxing tournaments. They're like, how old's that kid? He goes, 13. He goes, he's fucking 16. He goes, okay, he's 16. He'd put him in with the 16-year-olds. He'd knock the 16-year-olds out. Yeah, he was a freak. So you have that sometimes. You know, you have kids that just have extraordinary genes. And then you have this perfect storm of a very intelligent person who's deeply neglected as a child and then adopted by a genius. Not just a boxing genius, but a genius in terms of psychology and life and philosophy, and he understood war. And like he was a war historian, and he was a boxing historian, and he was also managed by this guy Jim Jacobs, excuse me. And Jim Jacobs had Jim Jeffries tapes, or James Jeffries. He had Jack Johnson and Jack Dempsey. He had all the film footage of like fighters that some of the greatest boxers of all time. Willie Pep, you know, Floyd Patterson. He had all this old footage on reels, and he was like the biggest collector of old boxing footage. And Mike was being managed by him. So Mike would sit there all day and watch Jack Dempsey fight, watch Jack Johnson fight, watch Stanley Greb, watch these old killers. You know, these guys that existed, you know, decades ago, and no one gets a chance to see them. Because, you know, we're talking about 1980. You don't even have VHS tapes, right? When did they come along? They were like 82 or something like that, right? So he's getting, like, this is happening to him in the 70s, like late 70s. Like, so let's make sense of this. So he's 58. He's a year older than me. And, well, so how old was he when he was 13? What year was it when he was 13, rather?
So he was born in 79.
79. Okay, no VHS. So the only way you can see these things is if they put them on television, which they might, but then you have to watch it while it's on TV. You can't rewatch it again. There's no way to record anything. Or you know Jim Jacobs. You know Jim Jacobs, who also did the commentary in a lot of those. If you watch a lot of those old films, they're black and white and there's no sound, and they like put in sound later. And Jim Jacobs does the commentary. I know his voice, and he was a genius too. And they had this incredible convergence of all these things that created Mike Tyson in like 1986, when people were like, "Holy shit!"
Yeah.
When he would walk out there with no bathrobe and just fucking. He was a perfect creation of the universe. Like the universe, all the factors that would come into play that make something super special, all came in his. What if your kid thinks they're possessed? That might be a good thing. Hypnotize them. If the kid's like, you can. I have words for you. Like, oh, Billy, what the fuck is wrong with you, man? I'm sorry I left you alone. I had to work. I had 2 jobs. I had to pay the bills. Billy's bouncing off the walls at home and he thinks he's possessed.
Freaking out. You're like, watch the spoon.
Yeah, it might be good to hypnotize that kid. But yeah, I would think hypnotizing anybody before they were aware of what the fuck that means.
We just passed them.
But I don't think hypnotizing is what people think it is either. I don't necessarily. I've only been hypnotized once, so I can't speak to like what the total potential of what someone can do with hypnosis is. But you're aware of what's going on. It's not like you're gonna like take your clothes off and blow this guy. Like it doesn't make any sense. Like you're just in a different state of consciousness, and it's almost like you're allowed to look at things for what they really are, versus all this noise that's around most of the ideas in your head, where you're blaming other people when you should probably blame yourself, when you know you were lazy and that's why it went bad, and it wasn't like someone else's fault, and all that stuff that keeps people on the wrong track, that keeps people drinking too much and gambling too much, all those weird things that are going on in your head. Like, you'll get past that and you'll see you.
Yeah.
And you see you for a brief amount of time, and you kind of analyze what it is that's fucking with you. And then someone who's like a good performance psychologist can implant ideas, like help you implant ideas in your mind of how you're going to approach things from now on. How are you going to look at things from now on? And I know a lot of fighters use that. A lot of fighters use hypnotists and performance coaches. The guy who did it to me is my friend Vinny Shorman, and he does it to a lot of fighters. He hypnotizes a lot of fighters.
And what does he put in there?
I think it depends. I think it's different for each fighter. You know
what they need.
Yeah,
what they're missing.
I mean, some fighters. There's a thing that happens with some fighters in the midst of a chaotic fight. They will forget about the game plan, and they will just go on instinct and start throwing down, and they wind up getting knocked out, or something goes bad. They panic. Like, I don't want to say panic, but they don't think straight. That's the best way to say it, because they're still fighting. You know, it's chaos, but you're letting that lizard brain take over, and you're not sticking to the game plan. Like, the really good fighters know how, even in these like chaotic scrambles, to keep things technical. Don't do anything that's going to get you caught. Like, it looks nutty when you're watching it on television, but if you're watching a tactician like a Max Holloway or Sanhagen or Sean O'Malley, like these fighters are very tactical. Everything they're doing is to elicit a reaction from you, and then they have counters based on how you do things, and then they start downloading how you're moving and reacting to things, and then they'll start plotting and moving. And then towards the end of the round, he started fucking you up. But for the he was just downloading. Anderson in his prime, I had never seen anything like him. When he was in his prime, he was just downloading people's movements.
And do you think those other fighters could see it in his eyes and they're like, oh, fuck,
yeah,
now he knows?
Yeah, when he was at the top, for sure, everyone was terrified of him. The one thing that they did find out, though, he had a flaw. And the flaw was, if you didn't attack him, he didn't attack you. Like, he wasn't willing to punch, he falls down. That's happened before. It happened to Tom Aspinall recently. Threw a kick, knee fell apart. Didn't even happen, like, it wasn't happening like where someone did something to him. He just threw a kick and his knee fell apart.
I'd rather watch a guy get knocked unconscious than have that huge response to a part of their body blown up.
The knee's a bad one, but the worst is the shin break. That's the very, very worst. Or an arm. Those are the hardest I've ever. I've seen 4 leg breaks in person, and they're fucking horrific, man. They are fucking horrific. They hurt your soul.
Oh, you got one?
This is the worst one. Oh, that's Patrick right there. Moved weird.
That's it.
Out of nowhere. His knee just exploded, blew out his ACL, tore his meniscus. It's crazy.
And that's a tough dude. So for him to have that reaction,
the toughest. He was an animal. Patrick Cote was a fucking animal. But the fight was kind of boring because he was so dangerous. So Anderson couldn't lead, right? Because if you lead, you worry about being countered. So Anderson was not just really fucking good, but also you worry about being countered. So Anderson was not just really fucking good, but also really smart. He just knew when he could hit you, and he knew when you could hit him, and he would take his time. But again, once he got you figured out, like, as the fight went on, he would, like, if he made the fight boring, it was also a strategy, because then you would be anxious, and you would maybe do something to try to pick up the pace, and he would crack you. But he's an old veteran, so he's just standing around going, I don't give a fuck about booze. Just move around here. He did that with another guy, a Brazilian guy, Thales Leites, kind of the same thing. Boring ass fight, but a dangerous fighter and a really dangerous guy in the ground. Thales Leites was a nasty jiu-jitsu black belt. So he was like, I ain't going to the ground. Like, I'll fucking stay on the outside, just kind of barely win every round. Yeah, but if you do something stupid, I'll fuck you up. And nobody did anything stupid.
To know all that shit.
Well, he was just so smart that he didn't care if people were booing. And then the UFC would get mad at him. They'd get mad at him because those performances, even though he's the greatest of all time, at the time he was for sure. In my eyes, he's still in the conversation. During his time period when he was running shit, still in my book, one of the, if not the greatest, the greatest of all, one of the greatest of all time for sure. He's in the conversation, whatever that. The conversation is so subjective, and I change my opinion on it all the time. But during that time period, he didn't give a fuck if people were booing. He didn't care. He's like, and so the UFC would get mad at him. But I was always of the mind that he's doing the 100% correct thing. He's the fighter. And to fight the best, you got to know when to attack and when not to attack. And sometimes you don't attack at all.
Yeah.
Because sometimes if he does something out of character and forces it, that was not his style. So for him to engage in a style that's not his style, then that's stupid. The smart thing is to fight to the best of your abilities. And unfortunately, some of those fights were not fun. But you also get the Vitor Belfort fight from the same guy. You know, you get you get the Okami fight. You get the Forrest Griffin fight. You get all those insane knockouts, those highlight reel knockouts. He was a monster, man. In his prime, he was a monster.
But if you can take the booze and the other guy can't.
Yeah. Well, it was also like he wasn't going to do anything stupid until he did. And then he did, and he got knocked out by Chris Weidman because he was doing something stupid. That's literally what his demise was the thing that kept him so invincible his whole career. He would stay composed no matter what happened. Just stay composed. He always knew when to attack, when not to attack, when to attack, when not to attack. He was just a genius. There's guys that, like, for a while, whatever those years are, where you can't beat him. Like, no one's going to beat him for these years.
And that's just because of his strategy, watching you move.
Oh, he was also so good at being the champion, right? There's a thing about performing in front of so many people with such high stakes. And if you've never experienced that before, the first time you ever fight for a championship fight, it's so crazy. You see it in guys' faces sometimes.
Sure.
You see the weight of it on them. They're like, fuck, this is so heavy. There's so much anxiety. You just can't wait to get in there and get it. Once it gets going, then you're fine. Then you're just going on instincts. Then you're going on training. And then you're fighting. But it's the build-up and the thinking, the anticipation, the anxiety. He's used to that.
Yeah.
He's done that 13 times. He defended the middleweight title, I believe, more than anyone ever. Is that true? I believe he did.
That's why Gene Hackman measured the hoop in Hoosiers. Right? Let him know, like, you've been here. This is it. Same fuck. It's 10 feet.
Yeah. It's the same thing everywhere. Yeah. But the thing is, that's like that anxiety of performing in the moment, and that's what a sports psychologist does. That's where a sports psychiatrist comes in. That's where a sports hypnotist, rather, comes in. Psychiatrists too, but they give you drugs. You can't take those from fighting. Some guys will try. Some guys. I knew a guy who got kicked off a card because he was on Adderall, and they were like, "You can't take Adderall in fights." Like, I need it for my ADD. Like, fuck, shut up, shut up, bro. You're on speed.
It's tough though, man. Sports can mess you up.
Oh, 100%.
Like I come home from golf for the last 3 years. Right, calling myself a dumb fuck, calling myself a piece of shit, loser. And then my girlfriend goes, "Hey, why don't you just tell yourself, pretend you're talking to 8-year-old you." And I tried that shit for a round. I had the greatest round of my life.
Yeah, you could do it. You just have to, that part of being a man in particular, like, you fucking idiot. You know, like, when you make a mistake, you gotta avoid that. It does you zero good.
There's a gym teacher with real short shorts in my head. That is the voice in my head, dude. Just like, you fucking idiot.
I'm guilty of that sometimes when I play pool. I'll talk shit to myself.
This is
Charles
great.
Barkley's one of us.
This is
What does he
great.
do? What does he do?
Did you hear how fast that was? I mean, he almost not even hit the ball before he said it. That's amazing.
Oh my god, that's hilarious.
And then the girls taking the video laugh at the end. It's so good.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, that does not help you. But also, there's a thing about a guy like a Charles Barkley or a guy like you. It's like you don't really have the time to dedicate to a thing like golf to really get great at it.
Right.
It's the same thing as playing pool. The great pool players, they play 8 hours a day. 8 hours a day. If you want to play like a Shane Van Boning level, you want to play like a Fedor Gorst level, you have to play 8 hours a day. They play 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
They don't fuck around. They're so in the groove all the time that if you're like a casual player, don't want to ever let that groove go. They're in that groove all day long. All day long. They wake up in the morning and they start thinking about running balls. They start thinking about putting English on balls. Like if you want to play golf like a really great golfer, those fucking guys play every day. They have coaches.
There's just no way.
They analyze footage. Like, look at Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods started playing when he was how old?
3 maybe? 2?
Arguably.
Yeah.
Yeah, and was coached by his father from the time he was a child. Played constantly.
Yeah.
Greatest of all time.
I mean, you can get in the groove for a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps you going back. But you're not going to stay in the groove.
You're not going to stay in the groove.
No.
That, to me, it's maddening for me with pool. Because I could play pool, like if I have a night off, and I can play for like 5-6 hours. Like around 4 hours in, I start really getting the groove. I start feeling it. But it's like inconsistent. It comes and goes.
Yeah.
But if you play with a great player and you watch them do it, they just never get out of the groove. They're always there. They very rarely miss. They very rarely miss position. Their cue ball's perfect. It's always moving exactly where they want it to go. And if it's not, they play safe. And you watch it and just like, what? It's like, this is a feel of the movement of just won the World Championships. He's a friend of mine. He's been on the podcast before. We were having a conversation on the phone about cues because he had switched. He was with this company, Q-Tech, and then he switched to this company, White Carbon. And I go, you had it for like how long now? He's like 4 months. He goes, well, I'm pretty much there. He goes, but I'm about 3 or 4% off. 3 or 4% off. 3 or 4% off. Like, this guy's a fucking robot. Like, his understanding of where he should be versus where he is, and how, he wants to know exactly how much pressure to apply on that cue to make that ball dance exactly the way. He's like, it's a little off. It's a little, like, he knows it's a little off. I did it just right, but it went there instead of there. 3%.
Yeah.
What the fuck, man?
You ever left the stage and you just screamed 100% into the green room? I'm off 100%.
Every now and then you catch a groove and you are at 100%. And those moments are the weirdest. You're like, why can't I do this all the time? Why can't I just have so much fun with the jokes all the time? Sometimes you're having so much fun saying the material, it makes everything so much better.
Yeah.
And you're like, why don't I do this all the time?
And it just feels like every single thing you say is going to be awesome.
And the more you do it, the more you're there, right? So if you have a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, like if you're doing a real week in a place, you know, by the time Saturday rolls around, you're a wizard.
Yeah.
You're a wizard.
Yeah.
You got those bits tied up in a fucking basement. You're in control of the situation.
Just thinking about what you're going to eat after the show and still killing.
You're in the flow. Yeah. You're in that flow state. And that's when you come up with new stuff. That's the best way to come up with new stuff. Because you just feel funny.
Yeah.
You feel where the funny is. It's like, I know that vibe. I caught that vibe. I know where that vibe is. I can ride that vibe. And that's those golf guys. So if you're not doing that every day, you're going to get out there and fucking loser. You fucking idiot. You fat fuck. You talk to yourself just like Charles Barkley. It's unavoidable.
Yeah. Do you ever play snooker?
I know. I have not played. I've snooker, but it's very difficult. That's hard. A lot of snooker players are super successful in pool. No pool players. Maybe Alex Pagulayan, he could play everything. He's like a world champion in like every discipline. He's a world champion. 8 ball, 9 ball, 10 ball, back. He's like one of the greats of all time. One of the Filipinos too. For whatever reason, Filipinos are the best pool players on earth. Like there's guys driving taxi cabs in the Philippines rather, that can win pool tournaments in America. They come over here like you can't even everywhere you go there's pool tables. In the entire country, in the whole island chain. An elite professional snooker player as well as an elite professional pool player, but he's super rare. There's like John Moore, there's a couple other guys that can play really good snooker.
We came up playing snooker, and these guys are just like, they take it so fucking serious. If you lose them $1, I mean, these were old men. And if you lose them $1, forget it, you're out. I remember it was worth money. So you have to make a cherry, it's called, a red ball first, and then you had to make a number ball. And then he would always go, if he'd missed the 2 ball, he'd go, they never do. Or he'd go, yeah, you bet, if he'd made it. And so we went to this guy's funeral, and we had a buddy, his old buddies had flasks with them, and they raised and go, yeah, you bet. It was the fucking greatest funeral I've ever been to.
That's awesome. Well, I bet snooker halls, what do you call them? What do they call snooker halls? Where people play snooker?
We just played at the spot. I don't know. It was like a little restaurant that had tables and back.
Oh, okay. And they were all snooker tables?
We had 2 pool tables and then 2 snooker tables.
Oh, okay. Because like places where they just play snooker, they call them a snooker hall? Is that what they're called? Yeah? Snooker club. The term pool actually comes from gambling. Pool is not the game. The game is pocket billiards. The pool is what's called, they pool their money together and gamble.
Oh.
That's the name. That's the name that was attributed to it. Yeah, it was really a gambling game, 100%. But snooker players, and then hit the second ball. So it's all about understanding angles. See if you can find a bending angle. See if you can find a video of someone doing. Learn. If I make a point, I want you to go bye-bye. I don't want to see you. The fun with me is that guy Bloomdahl is one of the greatest of all time. World champion. I think I said his name wrong. But because I only watched like a few matches ever, I'm ADD to the max. I watched like 10 minutes. I'm like, why is the ball still there? This game sucks.
Yeah, the elimination process is the best part of pool, I think.
Exactly. I like watching someone run out and then making a ball is so like the last ball. Like if it's a hard shot, like oh my god, he's gonna get it, he's gonna make it. You know, there's a lot, and then when it goes away, like yay, it's satisfying. I don't want to see it bounce around, and stick around. But I've seen. people play snooker at a very high level, and it's wild to watch. You know, you watch someone just run out in snooker, and you're just like, Jesus Christ! Like, you have to be so precise.
Yeah,
The table's huge.
Yeah, tiny pockets, little balls.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know, for whatever reason, that never caught on over here. It's like soccer. For whatever reason, never caught on over here.
Just in pockets, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why, like, some things never caught. I have a friend of mine, my friend Eddie, owns the local soccer professional team out here. And he gave me some insight on that. He goes, they never take a break. He's like, football, baseball, you get commercial breaks. So commercials get stuffed in. Soccer never stops. It's like they play on the clock, and the clock keeps going, and every match is going to be X amount of minutes long, and that's that. There's no room for commercials. I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. Because if you go watch professional soccer live, it's fucking exciting as shit.
Yeah, everybody's freaking out.
And you appreciate the athleticism that you have to have, the cardio that you have to have, to be running back and forth and sprinting and sideways and, you know, ducking and dodging. And
very good. I mean, you look at
they all have like fairly small upper bodies and just jacked legs.
Yeah.
And these guys are just sprinting constantly. They have no wasted motion. At the elite levels, like the Lionel Messi level, like there's no wasted motion. These guys are just freak athletes.
My kids both played soccer junior and senior year, and it was great because I don't know anything about it, and it's the only sport I wouldn't yell at. Kid, I'm walking out, and he's right by the locker room, and I go, hey man, I thought it was a dad. It wasn't the dad. It was the goalie's dad yelling at the two over the top.
Oh no. Oh.
Like yelling at an ump is one thing, but yelling at a kid because he scored on your kid, that.
I've seen guys get knocked out while they're screaming.
Probably the church is going to go.
Their moms are screaming. Kick their mom. While their mom's screaming obscenities. That's hard to swallow. Hard to swallow. Mom, you probably distracted the fuck out of your son, first of all. Imagine hearing your mom screaming all that shit, and you're like, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up.
I didn't like my mom yelling, you got him, honey, when I was pitching.
Oh, God.
That kind of shit where you're like, I am working on it.
Don't do this, lady. Yeah. I know this is not for you. This is for me. Okay, you're supposed to clap when things go well.
Yeah.
And that's it. Don't be fucking yelling out instructions.
You got him, honey.
Like you didn't think you had him until your mom yelled it out. Like, oh, I got him? Okay.
Thank you, mother.
No, I got it.
Thank you so much.
Especially people that have never competed in a sport before. You don't know how fucking distracting that is.
Yeah.
Like, shut your hole, lady.
And she had competed in sports. That's the problem.
No! So she loved it.
Yeah, that'd be like her being on the beam, and I'm like, jump higher.
It's also, I think,